I had someone ask me the other day about overseas voting, and with the cutoff between Māori and general roll coming up on August 6th, even for overseas voters, I thought I'd put this all into one video so it's easy to access for anyone who wants it. Alright, overseas voting kicks off on October 21, and before then you need to check you're eligible and enrolled. To be eligible, you got to be over 18, have lived in Aotearoa for 12 months or more continuously at some point in your life, and if you're a citizen, you have to have been in the country within the last 3 years, or if you're a resident visa holder, any time within the last 12 months. Unless you're a public servant or a diplomat or in the Defence Force or one of their immediate family members, those guys have exemptions. And the electorate that you vote in is going to be the last one that you lived in for a month or more continuously. You can update all of those details at vote.nz. Now, I actually spoke to the Electoral Commission about that this week, and they wanted me to remind everybody that their system requires exact name matches. So you might need to do a couple of checks using alternatives, like using or leaving out a middle name, for example. And if you plan to be voting on the Māori roll, that decision has to be locked in by August 6. On October 21, the elections website's going to have available voting forms for you to download. So do that. And use a phone or a tablet if possible to do your voting. You're going to actually need to sign it, and you're going to need a valid witness to sign a declaration form that comes with it. You know, like a family member or a colleague or a registered New Zealand voter. Typed signatures do not count, all right? And your vote will be binned if you use one of those. But a signature from a tablet or phone made by your finger or a stylus is acceptable, so you don't need to actually print it out. You then have to get the form back, and most people in 2023 use the portal to do this. You upload it through the Commission Secure online site, and it gets to us as long as it's done by 7 p.m. New Zealand time on November the 7th, it'll count. You could technically mail it into a designated overseas voting place if you want to by 4 p.m. the day before the election local time, or hand deliver it to a local voting place by 4 p.m. local time on election day. And these are usually places like embassies, high commission offices, or consulates general, which is a really weird way of saying lots of consulates. In Australia, the fastest growing New Zealand population colony apparently, Australian state capitals often have voting places as well that you can drop stuff off. And that's it. You know, check your details, download the forms, fill them out, get them back, but do it in the timeframes given and make sure you follow those rules, particularly that one about signatures. And for the approximately 160,000 of us who've moved overseas since the last election, you'll most likely be eligible to vote. So, if you've gone to find greener pastures because of how shit the coalition made life here, you can still show them exactly what you think. Now, all overseas votes are counted as special votes, so they're part of the final overall numbers, but not the prelim results that come out on the day of the election. In 2023, that was exactly 78,030 votes, or about 2.7% of all the votes that were cast that year. And it actually helped reduce Nationals election night total from 50 to 48 seats and increase seats for Greens and Te Pāti Māori. So, if you or someone you know is casting a vote from overseas, that's what you need to know, and make sure that your details are all up to date, whether you're voting from here, there, or somewhere else at vote.nz. Hello there, kia ora podcast listeners. This one is just a really simple one about overseas voting for a really simple reason. I was sitting here having a chat to somebody the other day and going, cut-offs and all that kind of stuff, because this is what I do, this is how my brain works, there's a million things going on all at once. And one of the questions I got is, if you're voting overseas, because the whole timetable for that is different, is it different for enrolling to vote on the Māori roll if you want to vote that way? And honestly, I didn't know off the top of my head, so I did some investigating. I actually called the Electoral Commission or emailed the Electoral Commission last week and said, hey, got a media query, kind of curious about something, and they came back with a whole bunch of information about a whole bunch of things. They were so polite as well. Like they actually rang me back on the Friday or Thursday, might have been Thursday, and gone, sorry, we're not going to be able to get you the information when we said we would. Like, we were hoping to get it to you really fast and we're just not going to be able to. I'm like, no, that's cool. Like, you guys have got work to do. I totally get it. And then they called me back again on Monday going, we are so sorry. Like, we are trying really hard to get you this information. We just want to make sure it's 100% accurate before it comes out. Are you okay holding off for another day or something? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, they were so accommodating and so helpful. I'm really glad to see that, because I raised two questions with them. The first was around lying and what happens when people lie in election campaigns during the regulation period, the answer to which is they lie. Don't vote for them if you don't want to, or if you're smart enough to know better. Are you smart enough to know better is probably a better question, but they can't answer that at the Electoral Commission. The other question that I had for them was actually around the issue that cropped up last year with the local body elections, when a number of people found that they weren't on the roll anymore, particularly around the Māori roll, for their eligibility for voting or to vote in that referendum that they had, that stupid referendum. So I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be a repeat this time around, and they were so good with the answers. They explained that they understood what happened, people were concerned, and that there were a number of factors that came into play. Like if they send you out an easy vote form, for example, and you don't jump on the website for years and stuff like that because you assume everything's right, you might actually drop off the roll because they're not getting any kind of feedback. Which is not good. They need to be able to keep their information up to date. But there was also other things like you have to be really specific with how you search for your name. So you need to do it as it appears on the roll, and sometimes that might mean using your middle names, for example, or not using your middle names. Or you might be somebody who doesn't have a government name or has a government name, like Chris versus Christopher, for example. The analysis that came back from them was just try multiple versions of your name in ways that it might be presented if you don't find it the first time, just to make sure. So it does mean a little bit of vigilance from us. And the reason for that is because there are so many variations of people who have very similar names. Like I know for myself, the name Paul Barlow, there's at least 5 other people in the country who share first name and last name with me. And so I feel sorry for them. I know I've got at least one of them in trouble in the past, and I don't mean to do that. But it does mean that when it comes to checking details, for example, on the electoral roll, that they don't want to mistake me for, say, the Paul Barlow who worked in comms for Hamilton City Council in the early 2000s. They need to make sure that you are the person who you say you are, and so the specifics is really important so they don't allow for searching, just in case you don't go, well, which one am I? Which result? Because it's not Google that you're looking at. So that was the feedback from the Electoral Commission on this. And I thought, okay, somebody left me a message or left a comment the other day going, can you tell me a bit more about overseas voting? And I figured this is a really good time to put it into there. So this is hopefully a relatively short, easy to share, sharp video that people can sit there going, yes, that's how you do it, you vote. And I really love the fact that over the last 3 years, or since this government got in, it's 160,000 people approximately who have left the country, like New Zealand citizens and residents who have left the country not to come back. It's about 5,000 to 5,500 people, I think it's every month, to do that for over almost 3 years. And because the eligibility rules are you have to have lived in New Zealand for a year, I think it is, or have to live in New Zealand for a year, and had to have visited sometime in the last 3 years for citizens, that's going to mean most people who have left the country for greener pastures, and I do hope that they are succeeding in what they're doing, but they can still vote. They can still have their say. They can tell the government exactly what it was that drove them away by voting for somebody else if they want to. Or if they want to, they can vote for this government. It's entirely up to them. But yeah, I love the fact that most of the people who have left, 160,000, which is about the population of Hamilton in the early 2000s, they've got the right to vote. I think that's so cool. And last election, it was only 78,000 people that did vote. Who knows how many it will be this time around? I guess we will see. And to be fair, it actually sounds like they have it easier than, say, a student who's just finished their studies and their exams and is moving home with mum and dad and has decided that they're going to vote because they won't be eligible to vote this year with some of the changes and some of the rules around changing your addresses and stuff like that. So that's kind of weird. Right, that's it for this week, or for today. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. My brain's sort of all over the place. I'm still recovering from a very long weekend of walking and visiting and food. Lots of food at the food show. So I will catch you guys all tomorrow. Look after yourselves. Go check those enrollment details if you haven't done so, and maybe tell people about voting if they live overseas and see whether or not they want to have their say on what's going on here. All right, until next time, ka kite anō.